Let's explain the polyvagal theory in 5 minutes or less. You really need to understand this in order to support regulating your nervous system, having the quality of life that you deserve, and most importantly, regulating stress levels. The polyvagal theory is developed by Dr. Stephen Porges, and you can look that up on Google if you want a full explanation and read one of his very lengthy books. And I'm going to try and summarize this for you in a nice bite-sized fashion. The polyvagal theory specifically explains how our nervous system responds to stress and seeks to keep us safe. The polyvagal theory also studies in great detail our vagus nerve, which has a very key contribution in keeping us safe and in these different states of our nervous system. There are 3 main states of our nervous system, as discovered by Dr. Stephen Porges. Previously, we thought there were only 2, so this is a big development. First, we have the social engagement, otherwise known as the ventral vagal branch of our nervous system. This is where we feel calm, we feel safe, we feel connected. So social engagement is an important word in this state of our nervous system because this is when we feel safe to socially engage with others. When we are in this state, we can interact with others, we feel empathy, we can make decisions easily, we feel in flow, we feel creative. This is really like our rest and digest mode where our body functions smoothly, you feel good, and it's just really where we want to be. This is also where if you are primarily spending a lot of time in the social engagement branch of your nervous system, this is where our digestion is working well. We have regulated stress hormone levels. The body functions all go hand in hand with these different states. So you can see over here, when we're in the ventral vagal, it's a parasympathetic branch of our nervous system. This is where we have digestion, intestinal motility, we have resistance to infections, immune responses, everything is going good when we're in this state of our nervous system primarily. Then, number 2, we have the fight-flight sympathetic branch of our nervous system. So you can see, which is very interesting, as we move away from safety, we go into the sympathetic and then into the freeze response. So the sympathetic branch of our nervous system, as you can see here, is characterized by feelings like anxiety, worry, concern, panic. That's flight. Fight is more of our rage, anger, irritation, frustration. And really, when we perceive danger, we go into this mode. We feel stressed, anxious. We can feel our heart rate start to increase. We breathe faster. Our body either perceives whatever is going on as an important signal for us to fight or flight in order to get away from it. And this response is obviously really important if we're in real danger, but a lot of us get stuck in this response when there's actually no real danger as a result of ongoing stress. So if your nervous system is stuck in this flight-fight branch, you are someone that likely struggles with ongoing anxiety and panic, and you find it very hard to calm yourself down. That is a signal that your nervous system is likely stuck in this branch and has not figured out how to regulate itself due to this ongoing being stuck in the stress response. So in the sympathetic branch, as I mentioned, we have increases in blood pressure, heart rate, adrenaline, fuel availability, and we also see decreases in things like insulin activity, digestion, because obviously if we are trying to run away from a predator or a bear, our body is not focusing on digesting food. So this is an interesting parallel because when your body is stuck in this chronic state of fight, flight energy, you likely also see digestive struggles because your body is in such a state of stress that it cannot actually properly digest food. And this is where we start to see the breakdown of different things like our stress hormones, cortisol levels, etc. Finally, we go to our freeze response. So the freeze is also known as dorsal vagal shutdown. So the dorsal vagal state of our nervous system. So this is where if the threat that we're experiencing feels too overwhelming and we've been exposed to it for too long, we may go into freeze mode, which is where we start to feel numb, we start to feel dissociated, we start to feel disconnected or shut down, and it's the body's way of protecting us. So when fighting or running isn't an option, this is kind of like our play dead response that you would see in nature. And so for a lot of us that get stuck in a freeze response, this is because we've had so much chronic stress over time and we've faced this threat for so long that our body starts to shut down because it can't keep running at that same rate with that fight flight response. So this is where terms like adrenal fatigue come along, because your body has been pumping out so much adrenaline that over time it's like our our adrenal glands start to actually fatigue. That's what it kind of seems like. So when we're in a freeze response, this is really an emergency state. This is where we see our body starts to store fat and different things like that because it feels that it is under real stress and real panic. And so it starts to kind of break down the key functions that we really have in a healthy nervous system and in a healthy regulated body. And things start to decrease, like our blood pressure, our heart rate, our temperature, our muscle tone, our facial expression, our eye contact. This is when we are not being social. We are feeling very withdrawn. We don't want to go outside. This is when we have energy like, I can't, it's not possible for me, I'll never, like that sort of language. And we feel very shut down and collapsed in our lives. Very little energy available to the nervous system. So an interesting parallel is for you to see this all mapped out here on this emotional vibrational chart. You can see that the freeze response is the bottom of this chart here. So you can see the lowest amount of energy possible is when we're in this dorsal vagal emergency shutdown state. As our body starts to move into more safety and regulation, we move through the sympathetic fight-flight branch of our nervous system. So many people don't know that. As I start to feel more safe and regulated from a freeze state, I do move through the sympathetic branch of the nervous system. So oftentimes we start to feel anxiety and stress, even if we're moving into safety, which a lot of people misread and think this is bad, my nervous system isn't regulating, but in fact, that's not true. We need to move through this in order to get to more safety. So we move up the ladder of safety. And you can see we start to have more energy available to us as we move into anger, and having this anxiety, for example, compared to shame. Those are a higher vibration. We have more energy available in the nervous system. And if we do a good job of taking care of ourselves and bringing more safety to the system, we will move up into the ventral vagal branch of our nervous system, which is all this green energy here and upward, which obviously all have a very positive impact on our physiological health, our mental health and well-being, all those different types of things. Why is the polyvagal theory so important? Because our nervous system is constantly scanning for safety or threats through a process called neuroception. Depending on what our nervous system actually detects, it will move us into one of these three states or a combination of them. By understanding what state our nervous system is in, we can actually understand what the right tools are to implement in that moment to bring it back into regulation. Because the problem is, a lot of us are stuck in these different states of our nervous system, the stress states of our nervous system, the sympathetic or freeze response, and have an inability to regulate ourselves and come back into the social engagement state. And that is where we experience things like syndromes, chronic illnesses, disease, a lot of hormonal imbalances, cortisol imbalances, mental health struggles. All of these different things are all connected to our nervous system. So when we can actually effectively understand how to take care of our nervous systems, we are taking control of our health in a very empowered way and our quality of life. Many of us experience really unpleasant symptoms in life, whether it is a mental health struggle or a physiological issue, gut health issues, as I mentioned, chronic illnesses and so on. And then we seek to fix that problem by focusing on that symptom. How do I get rid of this gut health issue and my inflammation in my gut? Well, I'll take a few supplements and hope that that's going to regulate my gut health issues. But we're not actually addressing the root cause of why your gut is experiencing those issues. And hello, maybe it's because your nervous system is chronically stuck in a sympathetic state where our body cannot digest food properly in that state. And this is where we have chronic inflammation and things like that in the gut. So if you understand how to support your nervous system, you can at a root level start to understand how to take back your health and again, your quality of life, and really empower yourself to live the way that you truly deserve to live. Because remember, the way that you want to live, I can say with 100% certainty, is having an experience of life that is ventral vagal dominant, not being stuck in the dorsal vagal freeze shutdown branch or sympathetic branch of the nervous system. I struggled with issues with anxiety, my body image, my relationship to food, my self-esteem, my whole life, and I tried the route of doing this symptom-focused healing, and it never worked. And when I finally understood the root cause of what was going on for me and how to actually regulate my nervous system and empower myself with the tools to bring my nervous system into regulation, it totally transformed my relationship with each of those things and my entire life. And this is why I'm so passionate about teaching people how to understand this themselves. So I hope that was helpful. I know we went a little bit over 5 minutes, but it's really hard to educate you on all these key things in a really short amount of time. Let me know if you want a part 2 and if it was this was helpful for you.